We are the New York Jets, and we are built for this stuff, says Aaron Glenn, the New York Jets' new head coach. He and Darren Mougey met with the media today. I took a few questions. Not a lot you wouldn't expect to hear from any head coach and any GM coming in, talking about, we're going to build something special and this is going to be different and we're going to start winning. At one point, Darren Mougey, honestly, he had strung together a couple of sentences that almost sounded as if they were written by, the Johnsons themselves. It's very important the fans understand how dedicated the Johnsons are to winning and that they love the fans so much. But again, all stuff you kind of expect to hear. Aaron Glenn was fired up at one point saying, the not suitable for work. His actual quote was, "We are the New York Jets. We're built for this shit." We'll find out. A lot like, well, not Rex was a bit more fiery. Aaron Glenn was a little more measured, professional than what you get from Rex. But both they're all defensive coaches, but a defensive coach fired up, wants to change the culture, wants to start winning. Talked about some of his previous experiences. I think for me personally, I liked hearing him talk about. He was asked about, did he ever think he would be in this situation? Did Aaron Glenn ever believe he would be the New York Jets head coach? And he talked about when he decided he wanted to get into coaching, right? That he retired from the NFL. He was out of the league for a couple of years. Said he was sitting around watching television, watching a game on ESPN, and started screaming at the television because of how something was happening. And his wife told him, "Go coach, go, get back in the league, get back into coaching." So that was a weight off his shoulders. He wanted to get into coaching. Immediately called Bill Parcells, and Bill Parcells said, "Go be a scout." And Aaron Glenn said, "I don't want to be a scout." And Bill Parcells said, "The best coaches are the best talent evaluators. Go scout." So as we've talked about in recent weeks, Aaron Glenn went out. He scouted for 3 years, and then began his ascent up to becoming a head coach. He worked obviously with the New Orleans Saints. He talked about that and how his time with Sean Payton taught him how to build a sustained winner. He talked about Parcells being a guy who he believes is the best coach ever to coach the game. Maybe a little bit of bias there, but listen, he's a Hall of Famer, right? He's not like the guy doesn't have clout and credentials. So he talks about Parcells being the greatest. He talks about Peyton teaching him how to build a sustained winner and how he wants to do that here. I like that because a long time since Aaron Glenn was here, right? That was a long time ago. And he stood up, Aaron Glenn did. First words out of his mouth was, "The glasses on. I wear glasses now," which I thought was a nice way to lighten the mood a little bit. I took some notes. I may have written them too small because I wear glasses now too. I don't wear them when I do this. The glare, the reflection, I don't like it. Basically, a quick breakdown of what Aaron Glenn had to say. His parents were his biggest influence. His dad, hard worker, used to get up at 4 a.m. Mom had to raise 11 kids when dad passed away, so learned a lot from them about hard work and what it takes to get things done. Thanked his wife of 28 years. He's got 3 kids. Of course, thanked them. Said, "Look, we're a football family. We know football." Said his kids could be coaching one day. And of course, mentioned his brother who played linebacker for a short stint a few years back. He did say that he would be leaning heavily on Jaime Elhai, the team president, not a football guy, but the team president appointed by the Johnsons. Both Moogly and Aaron Glenn mentioned Jaime as someone they'll be working with quite closely and relying heavily on. Says again, when we've talked about this, he still talks to Parcells all the time. Says he speaks to Al Groh every season. Remember, Al Groh coached the Jets for 1 year and then went on to Virginia to coach there with his alma mater. It was kind of a surprise. Groh getting the job was out of the blue. That was Belichick and resigning as the HC of the NYJ. The Jets just wanted to promote from within. Well, it was unexpected. They didn't think they were going to be looking for a coach. Parcells wasn't going to come back downstairs from the GM job, so he was like, "Get to have the linebackers coach. Al can do it." So Al Groh is a guy. He said he still meets with every offseason. They still sit down and watch film together. I actually had a good exchange with him years ago. We tried to get him on the show, and he kind of respectfully was like, "Appreciate the offer, but I'm not there anymore. I don't think it's fair for me to comment on the coaches." I think it was about I asked about an interview with the job of being a Jets head coach, and very respectful answer, but just said, "I'm not there. I don't have the right to sort of be over the shoulders of the guys who are there now doing it." says they'll do magical things together. This is, every no GM and head coach combo walks in and goes, hope we win a couple games. Like everyone's going to do big things, and hopefully they do. That's what we all want. But no surprise there in what Aaron Glenn was saying. Mougey talked about how they interviewed Aaron Glenn in Denver, and Aaron Glenn blew them away, but they didn't hire him. I think that was when they did what the Jets did. I think that was probably the year they hired Hackett, hoping it would land them Aaron Rodgers, who Aaron Glenn did touch on briefly. We'll talk about the Q&A here in a second. Let's see. Moogey talked about, or Woody Johnson opened up. He talked about Moogie's rapid rise. Moogey only got one question, and I'll tell you what, not the greatest answer. Not what I was expecting to hear. And we'll touch on that here in a second. We'll go over the handful of questions that they took. Moogey got one question at the very end, and I was a little bit surprised with how answer-free the answer was. So yeah, they again, Woody praised his rapid rise. That was Woody was praising Moogey. Moogey said, again, the standard stuff you expect. Proudest moment of my life. I had the great honor to coach the Jets, a team with rich tradition. Yeah, I mean, look, they won a big Super Bowl 75 years ago. That you can't get any more rich than that, right? Let's see. Couldn't pick a better leader for the team than Aaron Glenn. Then he cited how much Aaron Glenn impressed him with his speech. They basically asked Aaron Glenn during the interview. They asked all the candidates, what first time you meet your players, what's it going to be like? And Aaron Glenn was the only candidate who said, I'll do the speech for you right now. And he said Aaron Glenn took a step back and just launched into this speech that he would plan to give it to his players. And they thought that came off as really impressive. Looking forward, he's in lockstep with Aaron Glenn in terms of, they've already talked about their vision for how to build a team, and they're in lockstep, of course. Let's see. And I'm gonna lean heavily on Jaime. So both guys citing their desire to work closely with Jaime Elhai. Says the foundation of players in place now. They like it. I mean, we've talked about that. There are talented players on this team, and they look forward to building on that. And then they will, of course, they're going to pour their hearts into this and try to get the Jets back to the Super Bowl, of course. So nothing surprising. Again, Aaron Glenn. The part that I really did enjoy though was hearing Aaron Glenn talk about how much it meant to come back to be a Jet, because that was something we've talked about a million times about Rex, right? Even though I didn't think Rex was getting the job. The thing I've always said about Rex is, like, when as Jets fans do we ever have a coach who actually wants to be here? This is normally a place for first-time coaches to try to get their foot in the door to move on to somewhere else. It's normally the Jets are pursuing guys, hiring guys that have never proven anything as head coaches. Oftentimes, guys that no one else is pursuing. Adam Gase, he wasn't a first-time guy, but nobody else wanted him. His phone wasn't ringing. Mangini, I can't remember. I think Mangini was the Jets were the only team to interview him. So the Jets are big on, like, bringing in guys to, give them an opportunity to learn how to be a head coach. Aaron Glenn wanted to be here. And he was asked about that, and his answer wasn't surprising. Like, this is where it started. I started here as a player. I started here, did some scouting here, and now I get to start as a coach here. So it just, again, and as I said at the time with Rex, like, that can't be the reason you hire a guy. You don't hire a guy because he wants to, because he loves the franchise. But it's nice. It's a nice little cherry on top. You look at the resume, it's great. He did the scouting thing. He did the, worked his way all the way up to D coordinator for a team that almost made it to the Super Bowl a couple of years in a row. So he's had a great deal of success. So that's what matters, really, is, can you coach? But if you can coach and you happen to have a little pride in this organization, there's not a lot of those out there. Not going to find a lot of guys who are proud to come work for this team. Let's see. Indy Jets. Hey, Glenn, first time watching. I think we need to get Rodgers as far away from his team as possible. Again, here's the thing with Rodgers. I'll talk about it again. Aaron Glenn addressed it. Actually, let me start with that, because I know it's if you missed the presser, that's what you want to hear. Aaron Glenn said it during the presser, before they even got to the questions. He said, I know it's going to be asked. I'm going to tell you right now, Aaron Rodgers, we're going to talk about it. We've communicated with him through text, and there's going to be an evaluation process for everyone on the team. And Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys, and we want to get the right answer. We're not going to rush to an answer. We're going to look at all of our options and make sure we get it right. So they left the door open to a Rodgers return. Indy, my take on that is, and I've said this before, if the Jets, if their goal is to end this playoff drought as quickly as possible, then barring a trade for J.J. McCarthy, which I'm fine with, but I don't know if that's going to take a king's ransom. If you can trade for McCarthy and that's an option, fine. But other than that, what are you doing? Who are you bringing in to get you to the playoffs? And I've said it a million times before. I like Tyrod Taylor. He hasn't started 10 games in a million years. Yes, because he's a backup, but when he gets on the field, he gets hurt. Tyrod Taylor is much younger than Aaron Rodgers and gets injured far more frequently than Aaron Rodgers. If you go into the season with him as your starter, you're probably getting 5 or 6 starts, and that's it. Who's starting your other 11 games? A third-round pick, Jordan Travis, who, no, he's not a rookie, but he's never taken a snap. So if this team wants to make the playoffs next year, then I think Aaron Rodgers is your only option, or the only one that's sort of, it's close enough now. I mean, he's already on your roster. You don't have to make trade picks. Now, listen, hopefully there's a pay cut involved or something if he leaves. But Indy Jets, don't get me wrong. I understand the fans who want him gone. I don't hate Aaron Rodgers like a lot of people do. I also don't love the guy and think he's still the guy he used to be. But I can't ignore, and some folks might, that's fine. He played much better in the second half of the year. I mean, look, he's an older guy coming off a ruptured Achilles. It certainly does appear that when you got down to sort of 6-7 weeks left, he was moving around a lot better. The escapability was back. The buying time, extending plays, all that was back, and the production got better. So you're going to throw that away for what? For who? Let's see. Indy says there are options out there. Well, let me know who are the options. And I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. I could be missing something. Like, who are the options that are better? And I say explain it to me as if I have a ton of time. I don't. I got to leave for work in like 10 minutes, but I wanted to hop on and do this. Wild Wave, how you doing? And yes, AG did kill it. Aaron Glenn was phenomenal. He said all the normal stuff you expect him to say. Thanks to Woody and Chris. Love this. Love that. I like that a lot of his former teammates were there and he thanked them. That was awesome. But it wasn't an act when he said he wanted to be a Jet, and it meant something to him to be a Jet. That was, anybody would say it, most guys would say it, but with him you felt it, just like you felt it with Rex. So that's always nice. Gonna run through the questions real quick, and I'll keep an eye on the chat if you guys have anything. But quick synopsis. Only 1 or 2 questions I didn't take notes on because I just didn't think they were that noteworthy. So of course, Rich Cimini opens up with asking him about the Rodgers thing. What is the process? You said you're going to try to decide whether or not to keep him, and he kept it vague as you would expect, and he just said we're just going to go over the whole roster, and we're going to try to get it right. We're gonna there's going to be a process for everybody who we're undecided on. Those weren't his words. That's just me paraphrasing. Wild Wave, Rodgers only played well against Miami. No, those were his best games. There were other games he played well. He was among the league leaders in drop passes by his receivers. So he was much better. Do you believe the rumors Matt Stafford may be available? Beloved, I haven't heard that rumor, but I mean, God, it's 2 years ago. At the time of the Rodgers deal, there was talk of should the Jets pursue Stafford, and there were people saying the previous year his arm was falling off and he couldn't throw anymore. And it's like, oh, maybe you don't go get him. Maybe his career's over. He looks fine throwing the ball now. If the Rams are willing, I mean, the Rams are a team that they've shown that they're willing to make some wild trades. If they're willing to move him, then I think you at least talk about it. So let's see. Connor Hughes asked, what drew you to the Jets? But it's his history there. That's no surprise. As I said, Aaron Glenn said, started here as a player, started here as a scout. Now I get to start here as a head coach. And he's saying, hopefully this is my last stop. Crystal Rich, I think she said she was from CBS. I've not heard the name before. But I love, this was my favorite question because it's something I've talked about several times. Asked Aaron Glenn, what did you learn being on that Parcells team, that went from 1-15 to 9-7? And Aaron Glenn talked about, bringing in the right people. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, basically focused on the importance of getting the right people in the building with the right attitude, getting guys coached up, and the thing you referenced. And this is funny. I did a show the other day with somebody And I brought up this exact play, this exact memory. So it was weird to see Aaron Glenn talk about how much it stuck with him. But he brought up the kickoff in Denver. For those of you who aren't old enough to remember this, the Jets played the Broncos in Denver in the AFC Championship game, came out with a lead at halftime, 10-0 lead after a Blake Spence blocked field goal late in the half. Anyway, Denver kicks off to the Jets to start the second half. They're up 10-0. They're getting the ball, and the wind just knocks the ball down out of the air. A strong Denver wind, and the Broncos get the ball and go on to score, and they win the game. And Aaron Glenn said, "I'm here to get that back." You can feel like he felt like they were going to the Super Bowl, and the football gods took it away from him with what a wild play. Only the Jets, right? But I thought that was a great question from her. Great answer from Aaron Glenn. Then Aaron Glenn was then asked by Brian Costello, where's that fine line between being hard on the players, but also being, a player's coach? And Aaron Glenn said, look, if you're going to hold them accountable, you got to make sure they know their jobs. So give them the information, coach them up, make sure they know what they're supposed to do. And then you don't have to tell them they messed up when they do, because they'll know they messed up. So to hold them accountable, you have to make sure they're knowledgeable, which I thought was a very good answer. Whereas, Robert Sala's answer used to be that I don't yell at players. I don't. And he didn't. He never got mad. Indy, real quick in the chat. Take our top 4 offensive tools: Wilson, Hall, Conklin, even Lazard. No, really did any better with Rodgers and Zach, right? With 2 less wins than Zach, and Zach was trash. Yeah, but again, wins are a team stat. I even poked a little bit of fun at that a few weeks ago, saying that Zach Wilson had a better win percentage. Just look at the numbers. With Zach Wilson, this team scored like 15 touchdowns, whatever it was. With Rodgers, they were, high 20s and the 30s, I think, in total touchdowns. Maybe like 25, 26, whatever it was. The offense ran much better. I think Conklin's going to be gone. Lazard needs to be gone. But I think if you're starting with Wilson and you keep Devontae, because you left Devontae out there, Indy. If you get Wilson and Devontae back, because if Aaron's back, Devontae's back. So Aaron, Devontae, and Garrett Wilson for a full year if Wilson doesn't demand the trade, plus Hall. Conklin may come back. If I were him, I'd look to go somewhere else where they used the tight end. But we'll see about that. Cousins was absolutely horrible this year. If you go to Cousins, like just admit you're tanking. You're not competing with that guy. He didn't even look like an NFL quarterback by the end. I don't know if he's broken down for good, but from Aaron Rodgers to Kirk Cousins at this point in time would be a tremendous downgrade. Let's see real quick. That was Costello's question. I went over that. Antoine Staley of the Daily News says, how did scouting help you? How did starting as a scout help you get to this point? And Aaron Glenn said that was Bill Parcells' advice. And it was the best advice he ever got in terms of getting to this point. Individual stats, maybe not, but as a whole, like how many touchdowns did they score with Rodgers, and how many touchdowns did they score without Rodgers? And again, the most important thing, Indy, I don't have it in front of me right now, and like I said, I got to run. I got like 2 minutes. Look at weeks sort of 8 through 17 or 9 through 17, when Rodgers really played at a much higher level. Basically, what you're getting with Aaron Rodgers is a guy who was once elite and who now at times is elite and at times is just good. But a mix of good and elite is way better than what they've had in years past, and probably better than what they're going to get with any free agent or draft pick at this point. Or even, again, if you trade for McCarthy, you can live with that. But we'll see what happens there. Rich, how we doing, buddy? Says huge pressure. New GM has a rough road ahead. Who stays? Who goes? That's going to be a very important question. So here was the only question that was asked of. Here's the only question that was asked of Moog. Moog, I guess they call him. Really surprising. Zach Rosenblatt said, what are your tenets? What are some of the things you look for in player evaluation when you're, come draft time or whatever? Now, look, I don't expect a 15-minute soliloquy on every single detail he's looking for, but he didn't have anything. He was like, "Oh, we're going to talk about that later." Like, no, you're an assistant GM. There must be core beliefs you have that, like, you got to have this, and even a generic answer. You got to eat, sleep, and drink football, and discipline, and good culture, whatever. But he was like, "We're going to talk about that later." Me and Aaron Glenn are going to sit down and have that conversation. So maybe he misinterpreted the question. Maybe he meant, what are the Jets going to be looking for? Which would mean, yeah, let's collaborate and see what we come to. But he'd asked him specifically, what are your core things you look for in player evaluation? And he just didn't really have anything. Indy says Rodgers is a horrible leader. Listen, I hear that from fans, but the team votes him most inspirational guy, and the fans say everybody hates him. So, I'll lean on what the guys in the locker room, because that's not just quotes in the paper. Which if that's all you had, I could say, look, nobody, guys don't say mean things about guys in this day and age. But when you're voting the most inspirational guy on the team, I don't know. I think there's just a lot of hate for Rodgers after the COVID thing, but players don't seem to hate playing with him. But look, maybe that I'm open to the possibility that his act grew thin and he didn't win any awards this year. I don't think he did. I don't think he was voted anything. Maybe he was. Again, off the top of my head, I can't recall. But that's it for this one, folks. Just had to be real quick. Wrap this one up. Gotta head out. Might go live later. Dylan is on the ground in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, so hopefully we'll be able to get on with him sometime in the next couple of days, and at some point talk a little bit about this presser today if he had the opportunity to watch. New Jersey Lauren, how we doing, Lauren? She says real quick, she likes the emphasis on continued success, which is what Aaron Glenn stressed. He said it's what he learned from Sean Payton, and it's what he wants to build with the Jets, is to build not just a winner for now, but a winner for the long term. And as Bruce Beck said to him, I think some Jets would be happy just to win a little something now. That'll do it for this one, Jets fans. Have a good one.